Welcome to the LA Soccer Hub Show. My name is Gio Garcia. Today is Thursday, November 19th. Almost forgot the date. Doing a double podcast here. We having both of the voices of LAFC on the podcast. As we know, LAFC have a big matchup on Tuesday, November 24th against the Seattle Sounders. News broke today. Obviously, we know now that Diego Rossi, Brian Rodriguez, and the remaining Diego Palacios and Jose Cifuentes are going to be there. And also news broke later today, that Brian Rodriguez was confirmed positive with COVID-19. So 4 for 4, unfortunately. Even though it looked like like it was going to break LAFC's way, they were going to come, but unfortunately that's not it. Bob spoke today on the press call. He said that they practiced. They expected to practice. They practiced without him, and so it's unfortunate with them. But along with me here tonight, we have Max Bretos from LAFC. Max, how you doing?
Good. I had to hit the mute button because my wife's making dinner, which I'm very excited about. But I can hear the pressure cooker. If you hear that, that's what you're hearing. But it'll go away. I'm doing good. It's strange, Gio, because of all the stuff you just said and how frustrating to see the news about Brian, because you had a little sliver that, okay, maybe one of these guys, but then just, cataclysmic bad luck. A lot of guys, unfortunately, contracted COVID on international duty, but all four of LAFC's guys is very frustrating. I'm sure we'll talk more about it. But I know LAFC knew, and Bob Bradley knew, this was a possibility, and now they're facing it. And I know they're preparing. They were preparing to certainly play without these guys, and now they know they will. At least for the first game, hopefully not beyond that, but we shall see. And hopefully there is a second game.
Yeah, exactly. Hopefully there is a second game. Hopefully, if they move on, that's it. But I think what I do like is that the league pushed. Even they spoke with the MLSPA and all the disease experts and stuff to get charter flights, and to this was going to be the safest. They did all that. I like that the MLS did that. Unfortunately, it's 2020, and this is what ended up happening. So
by the way, Gio, that charter flight thing was going to be crazy. From what I understood, they're going to pick up a guy here in Ecuador.
That's what I was assuming.
I was trying to figure out what was going on, but I go, is it one plane, one guy? And they go, no, don't be stupid. I go, I know, but I mean, they got to get these guys. So I think it was going to pick up guys here in different cities and then bring them back to the States.
Yeah, I figured it was going to be something like that. It wasn't going to be like Rossi and finally they're going to get their own private jets just flying by themselves, right? Not yet. Not there yet.
Right? Maybe closer than we'd think, because to your point, I was very surprised that they were going to approach it and speed up the quarantine protocol where it wouldn't have to be 10 days. So everything was in place. Unfortunately, the four guys got COVID.
Yeah. Just to close that out, we're really starting to see how much money MLS is willing to dish out to have, the most important players, because essentially if you have the best players on there, you're going to have, essentially you would have, in theory, the best product on the field. And that's what makes sense. And I like that the MLS did that. Let's talk about today's call. I think you were on it with Bob and stuff. You mentioned a lot of different things. One of the things he mentioned, I'd ask him, who was going to go in place of Diego Rossi. And the one name he mentioned was Christian Torres, which, we all assumed that would potentially be him. But it's great to hear Bob's thoughts on the 16-year-old kid, Christian Torres. What are your thoughts on Christian Torres coming into a game like this? And what are your thoughts on the type of impact he can have in this game?
Christian continues to impress. And when everyone came back from the first international duty, I think we all prepared ourselves to say that, hey, the academy guys were a great story, but now they can move aside and the senior guys will take it from here. Well, an opportunity has arisen. Christian looks ready. And I think he's going to play some kind of role here, because without Diego, who is the fastest player for LAFC, you need someone who can kind of stretch the field a bit and take on defenders. And he's willing to do that. You can see it. He has that confidence. So it makes sense. Now, is it a recipe for success to throw a 16-year-old into a playoff game and the biggest game of the year for LAFC? Most people would say that's probably not the best direction, but they were fortunate enough to get enough games under him. He looks wise. He scored that goal. I think that did incredible things for his
Go ahead.
The steam, the pressure cooker, the dog. We have some nice ambient sound. But I think he's the one guy because you think of the front three. Okay, Carlos Vela is going to start. Hopefully, I mean Bradley Wright Phillips. You would imagine he had didn't play so much the last two games. He'll probably get in there, but does that mean Danny Musovski? You concede a lot the way you play because with Brian and Diego, you have guys who stretch and push. I think you need a player like that, and the guy who kind of resembles more Brian, I think, than Diego is Christian Torres.
Yeah, no, and I'm excited, and I also excited because of what this means for the academy, what this means for kids from Southern California. There's a pathway now, and it's the everything that LAFC has done, everything they're doing, it's working, and you're going to see a 16-year-old kid start, potentially start with them, potentially start with them on Tuesday. And it's an exciting time if you're a young kid in Southern California looking, okay, maybe if you have to choose between academies and you're in Southern California, LAFC Academy is looking really good.
And Gio, you make a great point about look, LAFC is for Los Angeles. The supporters, the people who work with the club, you, me, we love this city. But the one thing that was missing was someone from Los Angeles on the field.
Yep.
And now you have that. And he is from San Bernardino County in the Fontana. Hey, Eric Duenas is from El Monte. And we had that a bit with Adrian Perez, but now you have these guys who are really represent the city in a wonderful way, and it's exciting to have that because we can all relate to it, and there's people
And actually,
in LA that relate.
I used to growing up. Funny quick little story. I lived in they call it El Monte. I lived growing up there, and then my cousin, she bought a house in Fontana, so I lived in Fontana.
Wow.
For like a year for real. So it was like when I moved back to Cali. So I have ties to those areas. I'm not gonna say to the players, but to those areas.
Do you ever live in Long Beach?
No, not Long Beach.
Tony Leone is the other one who's going to play at some point.
No, I've driven through Long Beach and hung out there, checked out
I love hanging out in Long Beach. I miss hanging out in Long Beach.
Yeah, no, so it's like I said, that was what was missing for this LAFC team, and I'm happy they finally have an LA player or a Southern California player, I guess you better would say. Looking at the defense, to me, I think this is potentially where the game may be. Because we've known LAFC has conceded a lot more goals this year that they have last year. And there's a lot of things that came into play, right? You can name any number of things, but I think to me is where I see where LAFC can definitely either win it or lose it. And another caveat to that, I would add the goalkeeper, depending if it doesn't. I don't know if it's Kenneth Vermeer. It's looking like it, maybe Pablo Cisneros. But what I'm alluding to is if they have a big save or if they have an error.
And both keepers have had some good saves down the stretch. And I think we saw some toughness from Pablo in a couple games where he'd come out and punch the ball. There was one time where he and Eddie Segura clashed heads, but obviously you had that. And then Kenneth made the penalty save and was doing well. So I'm confident, more confident there than I had been earlier in the season. Mm-hmm. And the back line, it's 100% where the game is going to be determined. If LAFC can limit the amount of goals, and they had an issue with that in the two games in Seattle, they allowed 3 goals and then 3 goals. 6 goals. You can't allow 3 goals. You can allow maybe 1 and get away with it. Anything more than that, you're going to find some problems against a team. You're going to have to manufacture goals, and that's going to be harder without Diego Rossi and Brian Rodriguez. But I'm optimistic about what I saw in the Portland game. I don't know if Eddie Segura plays right back, but he plays right back better than I saw Tristan Blackman. Tristan's a good center back. So if Eddie can play right back, all of a sudden you have a back 4 that's big, strong. Jesus Murillo provided a lot. And with Tristan and Eddie Segura, you can handle, and maybe this is why they did this in the first place, you can handle Jordan Morris, who kind of goes towards that right back anyway. And when he attacks. So it looks better than it has at any point of the season. You have some flexibility. It would look better, obviously, if Cheeky is there, but Jordan's, I would imagine, would put his hand up, and Mohamed El Munir's put some good minutes. Mm-hmm. So I think you have 5 or 6 guys that I think we can feel confident could get the job done. Whether they do it, they're just going to have a real good performance. But a lot of people feel they can.
Yeah, no, I definitely do believe that they can, and I'm with you on that. Obviously, we're not at practice. I don't know if you're allowed to practice with all this COVID thing. Okay, so obviously we're just assuming here, but I think I like El Munir on the right back as well, because from what we've seen, I know he was on the injury list. We don't know. I think he might have been one of the players that got COVID. Hopefully, it wasn't a serious injury. And I think, if you have, whether it's El Munir or Eddie Segura on the right back, that you have some strength there. When you come playing against those, the strong attack that Seattle comes with, but you also got some speed, and I think El Munir may provide a little bit more offensive on that right back opposed to Eddie Segura. But I definitely do think the game's going to come down to the defense and the goalkeeper. That's all saying if we're even, like, I'm just saying if we're even in the midfield, even up top. I think the game could come down to that, and I could be completely wrong, and the game doesn't come back to that. It goes down to something else, right?
Right. Well, the crazy thing is we've been talking here for like 10, 15 minutes and we haven't really mentioned Carlos Vela as,
Mhm.
but the reason is I think everyone's kind of nervous to put too much on his shoulders, but timing wise, it's gotten better to do that. But and the reason I bring up Carlos, I'm sure we'll talk about him more, is he looks capable of that magic moment, and we'll see how he combines with whoever's at the top there. But what will allow him to have an impact and take the pressure off is that defense. And I think when we approach a game where you lose four guys, all four are starters, not all the time. But when you say, okay, we're going to be missing these guys, you pretty much say we're not, it's over. But then LAFC has enough of this class in enough places. It's got to hit, and they're not going to be able to go very deep. But there's guys that are difference makers there, and it's the great equalizers. So it's I I would think normally you would put your head down in these situations as you should, but my head's not going down. I don't think a lot of
Mhm.
LAFC fans, they're frustrated because of all the news about the four internationals. And you say, can't we catch a break? All four. Yes, all four. But even then, we were kind of preparing in the back of your head, being commonsensical, thinking they may not be ready, even if they don't have COVID.
Mhm.
And now you have this group, and they've had 10 days to train. So I want to see it. They could get some bad bounces, but I'm confident. I'm confident with the group they have.
Yeah, and I think just to hit a little bit more on Carlos Vela, he's going to show up for this big game. No doubt about that. That's who Carlos is. That's his greatness. I mean, just seeing it, he makes so many things that you see on the field, or a certain pass or a certain goal, just look easy. That the average human being, average player, is not necessarily capable of doing it, and he is the best player in the league. But he's also going up against, I think, one of, if not the best team in the league, the Seattle Sounders. And I just want to go back to last year when the Seattle Sounders played. I think it was the playoff game when they knocked them off at the bank. One thing that I sticks in my mind is how physical the Seattle Sounders were with Carlos Vela. And I don't think he was that effective because they really game planned to take Carlos Vela out of the game. If that happens again, Max, which I assume, I assume they're going to be very physical with Fella, trying to knock him off his game. What can the LAFC and Bob Bradley do to adjust?
I would imagine we have to prepare ourselves for that. And we remember that game. It was Adiaga who was, kind of
Mhm.
in Carlos's pocket. And there was a couple calls. I think everyone's like, wait, you got to call that. And the referees did it. So I think you first of all, if you're Bob, it's like you have a grown-up conversation with those referees and go, look, this is what happened. And Bob knows everything that needs to be done. But you've got to bring that to their attention. If it doesn't go your way, then you've got to find ways to take pressure away, attention away from Carlos, and that's a big ask. And that's where a guy like Christian Torres, Latif Blessing would be able to possibly do it. Mark Anthony Kay, whatever role he might play, and he's also pretty physical. But everyone has to lift their physicality and just find a way to break that team. And it's going to be required good dribbling, finding the space, being crisp with your passes, so that you can turn around and maybe for one instant or two instant find Carlos Vela open facing goal. And when those opportunities come in, hopefully they seize them.
Yeah, no, I'm very interested because I really do feel like it's a chess match. I don't think I know these games this year have been, blown big leads 3-1, 4-2. And I think this game's is really going to be it's really going to come down to potentially like one or two goals. Excuse me, one goal difference. Um, let's talk about the playoffs. What news broke about the playoffs, and if team gets COVID, the team that gets COVID would have to forfeit opposed to the other team. And then on top of that, that if both teams got COVID, that the only team that would advance would be the points per game. What do you make of all that?
It's look, everyone wants to hit the finish line, and my hat goes off to Major League Soccer because we got this far. And I look at the standings. I go, LAFC played 22 games. I don't know how, because we had a cancellation, we had a postponement, we had a rescheduling, and they managed to get to 22 games. COVID's going to rear its head, and it already has. I think there was a report. It's affecting Inter Miami, and they play on a Friday night, and I I don't know if that rule is going to be put into place. It depends how proliferated that the situation is with Inter Miami. But maybe Friday we were watching the game and said, look, there was too many cases. Nashville's going through to the next round, and that'd be disappointing. We're all going to hold our breath. You hate it to happen at the beginning, but once these things get started, it's going to be a sprint. It's 3 weeks and a day from the beginning of the playoffs to MLS Cup. So there's no room to reschedule anything. But it's essential once you get these games under that people keep a good bubble with their team. I think it's fortunate for LAFC. They play Seattle. They don't have to live the Pacific time zone. If they get through and Portland does it, they would have a similar situation. They might have to face FC Dallas, which would be a little different, but then they can travel the day of. And, I was talking to some journalists who've been talking to a lot of players, and they say the players enjoy traveling the day of more so than you would think. So you've just got to keep your head down. This thing's got to start. Once it starts, we just kind of hold our breath and reach the finish. And it's going to be fun to watch all this. But again, we just don't know because it's not a bubble like we had in Orlando. And every day you wake up, anything can happen. Look, we woke up, we found out the Rossi news, the Sifu, the Cheeky news, and the Brian news, and the Inter Miami news. It's happening over and over again. There's gonna be something COVID related that's gonna affect someone's playoff for sure.
Yeah, I know there's such a big time crunch. I think to me, which I was talking earlier with Dave, if if it were to come down worst case scenario, the Western Conference Finals or the Eastern Conference Finals, and say both teams got COVID and that's the way they moved on to the final, I think that's where a lot of people would be like, hey, why don't you do a final at least for the semifinals or at least for the final? And there's a certain time crunch that they got to do it because there's also CONCACAF. LAFC is going to play in CONCACAF, and also I think Atlanta United is going to play in CONCACAF. So, and I think this is them giving us a heads up, like, hey, this is a scenario. This is the worst case scenario, and this is what we plan for. And it's unfortunate that this may potentially be a team's way, whether they go or not, even if they don't compete, right?
The only gap that they had was during the international break. So they had 12 days, whichever. It's so weird because it's like rest, game, rest.
Yep.
2 games a week. Okay, no games. But this is, that's the way it had to be done. They did that to accommodate the international break. Unfortunately, the international break is blown up. And, it's very disappointing. Just on a side note, it's very disappointing to see, especially the Uruguayan guys, especially Diego Rossi, go down there for these 2 games, not play. I don't think he was ever in the plans to play. He's gone down there twice in 4 games, has not received his cap yet. So I was hoping, I know it doesn't work that way where you throw a guy in there for 2 minutes. All right, you got a cap. But to me, it looked like he was there to help prepare this Uruguayan team. He was never really going to play. So when he comes back with COVID, it's a punch in the stomach. But with regards to the schedule, it's you have got to put these guys under the microscope when these teams advance because those quick turnarounds. I just don't see, like you said, if a Western final, both teams have COVID or one has COVID, and everyone's going to get excited to see the Western Conference final. But if you tune in, it's Sporting Kansas City versus LAFC or Sporting versus Seattle. Seattle has COVID all of a sudden, and then Sporting goes through. That's exactly what's going to happen. There's no place to get it. And the league wants to put a bow on this season. This was all done to keep it going. I'm glad they did, and I'm excited to see it. But this is all to kind of get some normalcy back so that 2021, it can, God willing, we have a vaccine and we have these things fall in place. We can not only have a season relatively start on time, but we can have a season where people are watching games at the stadium.
Yeah, just to hit on your point, I know exactly what you said about players not essentially playing like Rossi. Obviously, he might have been just a practice player for the Uruguay national
And
team.
there's a value for those guys to
Yeah,
be there to practice with them. That helps the national team.
yeah, and at the same time, and there's going to be a lot of people. Well, why didn't LAFC or the league didn't do it? I think the reason why it didn't do that is because you don't want to close the door on on your talent, and you don't want to close the door on a national team competing for a World Cup bid, and because that's gonna if you did that, if the MLS, because there was potentially an MLS versus Comable, and I think if that went down, the the future South American players would have potentially looked at the MLS like, I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to get a chance to potentially play for my home country and turn things. And it's
It's a,
unfortunate
right.
that what Diego Rossi's situation was Diego Rossi's situation, and then he gets COVID.
It's a good point, Gio. And I look, if anyone gets called up, especially for a country like Uruguay, which is a team that could win a World Cup
Yep.
in 2022, that you don't turn that down. You go there. It's like any chance to be around a coach or someone just so they see you. It's really important, even if you don't play. And I get it, but I think it's also a case where that's how these national teams approach it, and they don't care about the club teams, and that's fine. And we talked to Bob Bradley about it, and he says, look, if someone gets called up, he's going. I'm not. We are not the kind of club that's going to prevent that. The league cannot tell us what to do in these situations. If a guy gets called up, he should, because even if he doesn't play now, he'll play at the end. It was just a little frustrating in this second, I think the second call up where he was there on not going to play, but there's nothing you can really do about it. It's such a weird situation. I think in a different world, people would have said, why couldn't CONMEBOL push these qualifiers to 2021? And they just have so many games that it would be impossible to find time for it. So this is it. Here we are.
Yeah, in 2021, it's even a packed schedule with the
Oh,
Olympics. If you start to look
2020 is
forward,
going to be fun.
yeah, it's gonna be fun.
Can't we get there already?
Yeah, it's gonna be like boom, boom, boom. Yeah, I'm ready to get out of 2020. Okay, give me a prediction versus the Seattle Sounders. What's your prediction?
I don't know. I mean, I think if common sense tells you Seattle is going to do well, they're playoff specialists. So I think it's going to be a tight game. I think it's going to be on the low scoring side. The games there were a bit strange. There was the game where they had the two penalty calls. If these little things change, it could have been much different. But Bob would mention it in his media gathering. All four games have looked very different. But I think the one issue is at Seattle. The two games, I thought LAFC's game in Orlando against Seattle was their best result of the year, which is crazy to say because I just remember watching it. They look amazing. They're running and they're pressing and they're pushing and they're scoring 4 goals. It was really impressive. And I don't think we're ever able to play a game as well as that, even though they played that game a week or two into the reset of the season. And then the last game where they didn't have Diego Rossi, Brian Rodriguez, or Carlos Vela, and they beat them here at Bank of California Stadium. There's a lot of, different guys stepping up. So this is not, I think we can't look at the Seattle team as this powerhouse. They are flawed in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
I think they were better last season. Nico Lodeiro's a little bit older, and he's got a lot of wear on the tires. But it's the Seattle part, and as Bob also touched on, playing on that surface, which gives them an advantage.
That turf,
the
yeah.
the physical nature, which I think LAC have closed the gap with the arrival of Jesus Murillo and hopefully with the return of Mark Anthony Kaye. Those are the two elements. Otherwise, I think it's a coin flip, to be honest. LAFC's got to find a way to get through here. And then if they can get here and then they can look ahead to the next round, hopefully some of the guys who were on international duty could be back. There's no guarantee to that, but they've got to find a way to muscle through it. This is a lot of pressure, and Seattle's feeling it too.
Yeah.
Seattle's feeling more pressure than LAFC because now LAFC are 7th. It's still pressure. We know the supporters and everyone here put a lot of emphasis on this team, but no one wants to see their season end Tuesday. But I think they'll be able to play a little more carefree as opposed to their opponent.
Yeah, I don't want to get ahead of myself here. Let's say things, for whatever reason, don't go LAFC's way. How does LAFC look at the season? How would they look at the season?
I think they'll always look at the season as one that you could do things you wouldn't normally do, like play the kids, like bring guys back from injury slower than usual, which I think we saw. So this was always a season. I don't want to call it experimental because it's not, but they could take it. And as they want to win an MLS Cup, but they obviously would like to say, look, let's get well. Nothing fell into place here, and if we this season will be very frustrating in a lot of ways, and something you want to put behind you. But I think they there'll be disappointment if they lose on Tuesday. But I think they'll have a long list of things that they can build off and get there. All these guys are young; they're going to be a year wiser. I think next year the pressure is really going to be on. I don't know how that year is going to look, but it's going to be disappointing. But I think you will see enough of good things, especially the kids developing, and especially getting everyone this experience to come a little closer. And every club's going to feel that, but I think it's reality. And saying that they can win MLS Cup is also, a spin of the roulette, because this is a cup competition. Who knows how it goes? It very well could be San Jose and Nashville in the final.
Oh,
It really could.
yeah, it could. It really could, and that would definitely be crazy. Regardless of what happens in the MLS Cup playoffs, their soccer season's not over. They still got CONCACAF, so you still have that to
Yeah.
look forward to, right? And you can you would hope you would have the international players by then.
You've got to be pretty optimistic about that to win it, because that's going to be another sprint, and it's going to be in the United States, and it's going to be a Champions League where you've got games under your belt where you normally don't. That was always a disadvantage for MLS clubs. So I think you approach that with a lot of optimism. So it's a nice little ace up your sleeve if things go bad on Tuesday night, and it puts a lot of more. It'll get the wind back in everyone's sails quickly. It's fun. And I'm excited about that, because we're going to be able to watch these games potentially through the holidays. Be
Yeah,
like around
yeah,
Christmas time, we're sitting here shoving food in our gut
yeah. It
and
maybe
watching
like
LAFC.
maybe like a little, because the World Cup is going to be around that time as well in 2022.
Yeah.
So
By
it's
the
going to
way,
be.
how lucky that we are always complaining about the World Cup being in winter time. Thank goodness it's in the winter time, because it's going to give people time to qualify and get all their games in. It's
Mhm.
almost like a, a blessing in disguise, so to speak.
Yeah. One thing just to finish up here. What you make of the news of Angel City FC deciding to go with with Bank of California Stadium, obviously home of the LAFC, which we all know. What'd you make of that news, and what do you make of women's soccer coming to LA?
Well, it's really exciting, and they could have easily played at Dignity Health Sports Park. It's a great stadium too, but this is one that I think it benefits Angel City a lot, and it'll. And I just actually did it I was on LAFC Instagram with Julie Ehrman, who's the president of Angel City FC. You can catch that on the LAFC account. It's been posted there. But they're excited to learn from LAFC, and LAFC, it's a lot of eyeballs for both clubs in this city. And now, that stadium is going to be churning between LAFC games and Angel City games and concerts and all sorts of events. That stadium is going to have all these great memories built in it. So I think it's really cool. I think the women's game is, if you could buy stock, I would buy a lot of stock in women's soccer. And
Hmm.
I covered women's World Cups for ESPN in the past. And once the tournament ended, there was a little bit of a rub, and then everyone forgot about it. But this time it's different, because these players from that World Cup were so good and so dominant that they are rock stars, and they're playing in Europe. And now the next generation fills in, and they're going to the conveyor belt's moving, and there's no stopping this. Women's soccer is going to be doing well. The NWSL has some good TV partners and excelling in that front. So it's a perfect time to be involved with that. I'm excited to get an Angel City jersey and go see these games. And maybe there's a Saturday, Sunday we'll be at the stadium twice covering this when the seasons do cross over, whenever that might be. It's exciting, and their ownership group is insane.
Yeah.
I mean, they have everything
A-list
covered.
star power from
But
everywhere.
they look engaged. They look
Yeah.
like they want to roll up their sleeves and help this process. And they have these resources are going to go through the roof.
Yeah, and I hope they have a pathway, like an academy pathway to, what we're similar seeing somewhat from LAFC, but like, for these young girls, because as you know, the women's soccer game is really, really underserved in the country. And with that much money and that much notoriety and the people behind it, I hope, the women's game really gets what it deserves.
Yeah, and you need they need to make a good living, and that's something that this will help facilitate. I know they did mention they're going to have tryouts and they're going to move towards getting some kind of academy. So that's great news for the development of the sport here in Los Angeles, which, as we all know, has great talent, men and women. So we'll find the next Christian Torres, and we'll find the next Christina Torres, or whatever, because it's all here in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
So it's LA is going to become a massive soccer city. And I think we reach out to the galaxy here. I know we've had our differences, but we have a shared space that I think we can
Yeah, it's
make
going to bring
even
the
bigger.
clubs together. It should bring
It
the
should.
fan bases,
Right, because
together.
Galaxy fans are going to be Angel City fans. LAFC fans are going to be Angel City fans. So they're going to have that in common, which I think will heal some wounds, but help everyone realize what they have here, which is something really special.
Exactly. Well, Max, thank you for being on. I know you got to eat. I know you got a late night
I hope you
there.
didn't hear my stomach growling.
No, I definitely appreciate you hopping on here just to recap and congrats on the microphone.
Thank you.
Look at the
Sounds
microphone.
good.
Yeah, it's working. Your
I'm
audio is perfect.
I've used it 4 times in the 2 days I've had it, so it's been a great purchase.
Yeah, like I said, I saw you got the Yeti Simmers.
I got the black one. You got the nice blue one.
Yeah, I got this. Well, I got this for a gift. Max. I'm over here calling you different names and stuff.
I've been called everything.
For the people who already don't follow you, which I don't know who that is, let them know
Who
where
is
they can follow
what? Max Bretos Sports on Twitter and M Bretos on Instagram, and check out Max Bretos on YouTube. I've been excited about. I've been doing some YouTube content, and it's finally getting some traction. So I'm excited about that. And it's great to always sit and chat with you, Gio. Always time well spent. I enjoy our football conversation.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. Okay, guys, if you guys enjoy this podcast, make sure to give this a 5-star rating. You can listen to this on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever you get your music. Drop us a comment, give us a review, let us know what you think. That's gonna wrap the show up. For Max, this is Gio. Peace.
Hey.